issues. And back in the day, maybe people would use their fists to come to some type of resolution, but because there is such easy access to guns, they're using weapons.
Sure, and the thing we're seeing is that it's not just one instance that happens. There's a lot of retaliation that happens back and forth, which just really it keeps the cycle going.
Now, James, you are have been on the other side of law enforcement. You have done time. You are in that wheelchair because you were shot.
Yeah.
Why do you think, from your perspective, you work with people who are coming out of prison, you work with them to get them back into the community, why do you think there's this violence?
I'm gonna piggyback a lot some of what the sheriff is saying. Social media is adding to this, as well as loss of hope, lack of resources, lack of underemployment. These young men want to have more, but you have mostly these service industry jobs that you could, what was the study? You can't even afford to have a one bedroom now on one job, right? So, and then we're dealing with the lack of positive male role models there. There's a brain drain in the community. Over-policing has done a lot of this, nothing against you, Sheriff, but over-policing has done a lot of this, and we tried to lock our way out of this, lock our way up out of this. And all we did was put people behind bars, spending an exorbitant amount of money, and now there's no father in the house. So who does this young man get to talk to? And then there's a lack of reflection in the school district. As a young black man growing up, even in Chicago now, we did have black teachers there, but not a lot. Now down here, it's mostly white, middle class women. So who is this young man? Who do he see himself as? So a lot of them look into these negative figures like these rappers or an NBA player. There's no reflection there. So all these things are attributed. Then we're talking about trauma and loss of hope. Now, like you said, I got shot. In the beginning, I did not see myself living past 25 for a while. So when I made to my 24th birthday, that was like a big celebration. Now, that right when that happened, a week later, I'm at Northwestern Hospital with a bullet in my back. Was that an accident? Did I cause that? Or was that something that was foreseen? So they're seeing the same thing. These young men, these young individuals are not dumb. And COVID has only made this worse. It's exacerbated the problem, and they don't see any hope or future. And then once this thing starts, it's hard to stop it. It's contagious, just like what the sheriff said. It's like a virus.
And you called it a twisted perspective on manhood.
Yeah, it is. It's a false narrative a lot of them sort of adopted because, again, there's no figure there. So they figure that, getting shot, that's like a badge of honor. Going to jail, that's like a badge of honor. But it shouldn't be that way, To some degree, that's like, don't mess with me. Being known as a shooter is something that's respected in the community because this young man is fearful. He don't want no one to bother him. So someone is being known as a shooter, they say, well, don't mess with him, that's a shooter. And that's where it's twisted at, But and that's where we come in at, a lot of us older guys in the middle. We got to come in and reset this thing right.
Sheldon, are you hearing that in the school district?
Yeah. So I lost my dad when I was 13. And so I grew up in East St. Louis. And so I often look at these young men that I work with and talk to them about identity. The first thing I ask you is, who are you? Some of them will say their name and they have their heads down. And I say, who are you? I want you to tell me your name. Who are you? Whose are you? And so, the identity, learning the identity is a problem for a lot of them because they don't really know who they are. And if they lose the father figure or, the man in their life or somebody that's a role model or their first man that they have seen or get to know, and they don't have that, it becomes an identity crisis. They don't really figure out who they really are.
Now, Regina, you work with families directly.
Yeah.
And a lot of people want to blame families
Right.
and parents and single parent homes. How do you, what kind of challenges then do you face when with your work?
So, parents are oftentimes stigmatized. People want to point the finger and say, well, if you would only just do this, this, and this. And of course, any parent who loves their child is going to do the very best that they can for them. Sometimes if you just haven't had the experience yourself or had that same type of support growing up as a parent, you can only pass along what you know, right? And so the challenges that we're looking at are parents, a lot of single parent, female-led households, people who are needing to work 2 and 3 jobs to maintain the household and paying for the bills and keeping food on the table and clothes on the kids' back. And so they may not be as present, which is not something that they have any control over, because if you're not taking care of your kid, then you're looking at losing your kid to the system. So it's a catch-22. And so families right now are just really facing those challenges of being able to have a parent that is present and being able to stay engaged and connected and being able to see as to what's going on with their child. And I think that that's one of the biggest areas that we could potentially miss, is if there's any anxiety or depression, or if there's bullying going on, or if they're feeling the pressures from the streets, how do they deal with that? So those are some of the challenges that I see happening within families.
So then how are you helping families?
So what we do is we provide peer support to parents, because we know that parents need someone else who can say, hey, I get it, I understand, I've been where you are, let me be there support for you. Because what ends up happening in these types of situations is that parents can begin to feel isolated, feel alone, and so when we come along, we're there to say, let me walk this path with you. Whatever it is that you need someone to go to the doctors with you, we'll do that. Go to court with you, we'll do that. If we need to help identify resources or just have a listening ear, it's an emotional support. Someone else who has lived experience, that has walked in those shoes, and I can identify with what you're dealing with. I can identify the feelings, I can identify the experience, and there is nothing like someone else who gets you, who understands why you feel the way you feel.
And James, I mean, you are a model for that. You are trying to tell them, don't be where I was.
Yeah, we push that narrative, especially with First Followers, all the other groups I work with. We push that narrative to, I'm not going to allow you to come down this road. So we act as a sentinel, right? And show them a different way and get them some direction. A lack of direction is something else that's missing. Like, Regina was saying, we got, young, I was a young parent. I was only 16, I became a parent. I'm not ready for that. I mean, who's ready for something like that? But, so you got a kid raising a kid, so the adult or the parent is learning as the kid learns. So it's a lot of other factors to this, and I'm pretty sure Sheldon know a little bit more about that than I do, but yeah, we wanna block that.
Yeah, Shelton, what are your groups doing?
Yeah, so how I deal with trauma, and for instance, I got 5 brothers. If one of my brothers gets shot and killed, how I deal with that may be different from how somebody else deal with that. Especially if you're a young black male. We deal with things the way we've been taught, and so if we don't know our identity and we haven't been taught how to deal with conflict resolution and have those type of skills, then we're going to result to what we know. And so what we do in our program is we grab men that, like these men sit in the front that have been through some of these things like the young boys have been through, and they look just like these young boys, and so since they don't know who they never met their fathers, or if their father died young, if they were young and their father passed away, or got incarcerated or whatever, then we have to have older men that have walked through went through the things that they are going through or see themselves going through, to help them make it through this journey. I mean, it's tough. I mean, living in fear also is tough too. When you live in fear, you've seen the movie Fear. If you live in fear, it's kind of like you got to do whatever you need to do to survive. And so surviving for a 13 through 17-year-old nowadays is not how it was when we were coming up.
He said live in fear, and you all went, yep,
Oh, yeah.
we hear that.
Yeah, fear is real. I didn't know how much fear I was living under until I actually, this sounds strange, but until I actually died on the hospital table and left my body. And then I didn't have any more fear, right? But that showed me the fear I lived up under. I didn't know that. You know, you don't know, trying to figure out a way to come up with the bills. You living check to check. You making ends meet. You got to go out here, do this. All that is fear. All that is piled on top. All that is all that. But you don't realize that. It's like just being in the water and you don't know that the pressure is on you that heavy until it was gone, until I was released.
Right.
And then when I came back, I didn't feel it anymore. And I recognize it now. I know it. And I say, okay, I know what's going on.
Okay. We're going to take a quick break. They're doing the hard work. When we come back, how you can get involved. Don't go away.
Victory Over Violence Town Hall continues now.
Welcome back. You've heard about the challenges, what's being done. Now we want to get to some solutions. Sheriff, how do you get people to care, to participate in all of the programs that are out there?
Well, so I think it's multifaceted. So we have to have programs given at the right time, and we have to have the enforcement aspect when programs don't work. I would encourage anybody to get involved with Boys and Girls Club, anything like that, to be able to provide that mentoring relationship Tiger talked about. Because in my perfect world, programs would stop crime before they occur. We're not living in that perfect world, you know, and unfortunately we have to take enforcement action sometime. But just be involved in your community. Be involved, you know, this is all of our community. We're all living here. We all have a vested interest to make it a safe community for all of us. So take a little bit of time. Be involved in some of those things. If it does come to where a crime is in your neighborhood, chat with us. You know, sometimes people are hesitant about speaking with the police. They're worried about, you know, they don't trust us, or they're even worried about retaliation on them. So, you know, my deputies have been out, you know, walking around some of the neighborhoods where we patrol primarily, just getting to know the neighbors, and so they feel a little bit more comfortable with us if they ever do need to call us. But I think my number one thing would be is just get out there, get involved, because all of us can make a difference in the end.
Because I feel perhaps one of your number one hardest things that you're trying to combat, people not wanting to be witnesses.
Yep, and Jennifer, there's a lot of reasons for that, and there's a lot of justification that people have for that. But we cannot solve crimes unless we have information about those crimes. And so, you know, Crime Stoppers is a good resource to be anonymous if you want to report something. We don't care how you report it, but we need that information to help investigate the case.
Sheldon, it's all fine and good to have those programs at the Champaign School District, but if you can't reach those kids, I mean, how do you get them to participate if they don't want to listen?
Yeah. I'm going to say one thing, too. If we rewrite the narrative on the media, because it's not always a negative thing that's going on with young black men, if we start pulling out more stories, we start pulling out more stories about the good things that's going on with, because we got successes. We got Gold Getters got some successes. Operation Hope got some successes. These men got success. We all got some successes. So if we're talking about victory, there are some victory stories. And so if we kind of push that and rewrite that narrative, I think that would also help my young men, because they seeing, hey, there's some good things going on in Champaign. Everybody ain't all negative, because negative feed negative. They get the negative energy. If I come in there with negative energy with them young men, they're going to give me negative energy. So I come in there with some positive energy. I get guys that got positive energy. So, you know, that positive energy with the young men and some of the young females as well, because sometimes we forget about the females, because, you know, the females, they struggling as well, too. So with Operation Hope, we're working with the females as well. So teaching them about positive things and just rewriting that narrative, because they deal with enough negative.
And also, I don't want to just have it be we're not just talking about the black community. We have to be one community.
Right.
So the people watching who may not be part of that community, what can specifically they do? They're watching the stories, they see the crime on TV. What can anyone watching right now, how can they engage in trying to fix the problem? That's just to anyone.
Yeah. So we have a collaboration effort with United Way in the city of Champaign, and we always have opportunities to have folks come from United Way to speak to our students. We show diversity through a lot of the programs that we have, whether it's financial literacy, or if it's something, you know, like for instance Saturday we took some students to the game, the homecoming game. Some of those young men and young ladies never been to a University of Illinois game before, and we got free tickets. So, you know, and so we enjoy, and they enjoyed the homecoming, you know, and all of that stuff. And they were like, you know, Mr. Turner, I've never been to a game before. So, you know, just being able to provide for you know, opportunities like that would be great.
I would like to
I
add
know
that.
Regina's got a list.
I have a
I've been
list.
waiting for somebody to ask me this question.
Right, I do. I actually have three, actually. So when you're working with families, it's important to understand that when you have a situation where there's gun violence, there are going to be some unplanned expenses and things that happen. And families, I believe, need access to, and we need to establish, if possible, in the community, some flexible funds that can be attributed to every family, maybe $1,000 minimum. Then that way you can address some of the immediate needs that need to be addressed, that are unplanned for. So mental health counseling, maybe doctor's appointments, lost wages. Those things are very real, and they impact a family. A family becomes like literally frozen, polarized when this type of incident happens. And so you still got to maintain a household, and sometimes you need that financial assistance to be able to do that. So donations to establishing a fund to be able to assist some of that immediate crisis intervention that takes place right at the beginning when that happens. Another thing I think that Champaign County is already primed for, we have talked about systems of care, we have talked about coordinated services. We've been doing that work for a good 10, 15 plus years here. for us to actually get together as providers, as community members, to coordinate services for families. And what that means is that we're bringing families to the table, we're bringing the providers to the table, we're bringing natural supports to the table, and we're creating a plan to help address whatever the needs are for the families. And that's something that we have been working on and that we can continue to do. And then also just having peer supporters for parents who are navigating those systems of juvenile justice, the criminal justice system, whatever is going on. A parent can feel so isolated, alone, depressed, all of these things that are going on with them. So we need more advocacy type, lived experience positions that people can get involved with. And so and it's developing a whole nother workforce, because there's times when people want you to get involved in things, bringing your lived experience to the table, but they don't want to incentivize it or pay you to do that. I think these are paid positions, because then you have people who are dedicated to the work of serving families. And so we need people who can support parents with lived experience. We need people who have navigated the criminal justice system to be there for families to say, okay, this is what you can expect in an investigation. This is why this is going to happen, and this is how, things are going to play out. If it's, dealing with law enforcement, how do you interact with them? So I think that advocacy, peer support, flex funds, and care coordination or coordinated services are necessary.
City leaders in the room, I'm sure someone was taking notes, right? Writing all of that down. James, you have some ideas about how the entire Champaign community can help.
Well, I'm going to take what Regina said, and I'm going to take what Sheldon said, because Sheldon spoke proactively, getting involved, taking these young men out, exposing them to positive things. That's proactive. The H3 model is what I'm pushing now, is the harm, hope, and healing. Those three components need to be involved. Take everything what Regina said, bring it together into a coalition where we working as a unit now, and have a strategic strike. Now we're gonna get somewhere, because we got agencies working in silos, and that's a problem. We need to be accountable now. See, and now we get together, and then we got cross team. Connections across team, and we saying, okay, well, what's wrong with this individual family? Because you see, it's never one issue. I help people all the time, and I'm always finding places for them to live, but it's never just one issue. It may be drugs related, it's trauma, so I need help from other agencies. So I reach out. I go work with all these different agencies out here. I'm working like 5 different agencies at the same time, because I need that type of help. But now it's time to bring it together under one head.
I want to end with the hope. We wanted to talk about that there is hope.
Right.
There is an end in sight. Do you feel like there is an end in sight to what is happening right now? Sheriff.
I do, because we are all working together. Unfortunately, we have to have that law enforcement aspect, but that law enforcement aspect is not the entire answer any more than all programs is the entire answer either. Tiger and I were talking about that before we started. Groups like this and groups, I'm in meetings all day long. Champaign County has shown me that there is hope and we're going to get through this because we're working together.
Okay, so hopefully you watching, you have gotten a different perspective perhaps than you had. You now have an idea of where you can get started if you want to do something. Instead of just sitting at home and typing on Facebook, you're so sick of what is happening. You just heard 10 minutes of how to change things. We have to do this together. So this is the first step. The people in this room want you to be involved as well. Don't just let them do the hard work. So please, go to WCIA.com. We have links to all of their groups. We have numbers. We can do this. The conversation also, I want this room with me all the time. I love the support and the energy we're getting here. So please also go to WCIA.com. The conversation will continue. We will be streaming live there. Thank you very much, all of you. We're going to do this again.
Okay.
And thank all of you for being here. And thank you for watching. Good night.
This has been Victory Over Violence Town Hall from WCIA3 News in partnership with Champaign County Community Coalition. Victory Over Violence is brought to you by Rector Construction, Lands Inc., Tapman's Towing, Shields Auto Group, and ServPro.
Made a difference, right? Hopefully people are clicking those links right now.
Do you know Captain Bogus? Carrie Bogus? Get a hold of her. She'll be able to set it up for you.
I want to bring some people to you.
All right, so that's the testing. I think we're on. So let's give our panelists another round of applause. Great job, all of you, and thank you for sharing your expertise. All of you are subject matter experts.
Can't hear you.
They can't hear us? Peter, I don't know. You know, I don't know how to turn this thing on. Is it working now? All right, there we go. So if you have cards, I think Ashley and Mary Catherine are around. I have a number already to start from. Okay, so I saw one that came in, and I want to start off, and I'll let whoever wants to jump in on it. So the question was around starting earlier. And so with where we are in the community and supports and needs for young people and their families, do we need to start earlier? Right now, a lot of what we've talked about is age.
Absolutely.
Okay, so
Absolutely.
give us your thoughts on what you see.
Tracy Dace has a program called Dream, and so often I think we have programs that's really working, and sometimes some folks say they don't work, and we stop funding the programs, which is bad because we have already built relationships with families and kids and all of that, and then all of a sudden we can't deal with them no more because we don't have the funding. So starting early would be a really good thing to do, especially as early as 4th and 5th grade. So especially with our young boys, I mean that would be really cool.
And I would add to that is when you're developing these programs for younger kids as they transition, to always have a parent component. I think that that's critical because a lot of times we can, create wonderful programs for kids and leave families out, but kids go back home. And so all the great stuff that they learn in programs, they can, and if the parent is aware of what's been going on in the program, they can continue building on that when they get to the home.
Right.
All right. Anything else? Okay, great.
Yeah.
So, Sheriff, the next one's for you. We've been talking a lot over the last few months, year or so, intently about mental health and law enforcement, and how do we bridge that issue? How do we address that issue? I know we have started in a number of different ways, but I'll let you address mental health and law enforcement, and especially the service of calls.
Sure. So there's no doubt at all that law enforcement doesn't need to be going to mental health calls. Unfortunately, we have become the default. Let's be honest, sometimes there are calls that are dangerous, and even mental health workers who go to those calls need somebody there to be able to take control of the situation if possible. but I think we're on the right track. So for an example, this co-responder model that the U of I is doing. I have a social worker at the sheriff's office who will go, and the purpose there is to follow up with our calls for service, hoping that somebody won't need to call the police the next time. Give them the resources they need, because a lot of times we find that people just don't know where to find the resources that they need. And so making sure they know where to find those resources. But I think we're heading in the right direction. Unfortunately, the mental health response is relatively new to us across the nation, and so we're trying to figure out the best method for that.
Okay. Tiger, you were phenomenal in the first part of the segment. You're working with people every day. How do we change this dynamic around lack of hope? How do we now come back and start changing this reality that many people have lack of hope, aspiration, and understanding that there are opportunities out here for them? How do we change that as a community?
Well, with that 3H model, we look at a whole person approach. So we're not just looking at one aspect of what they need. We're looking at, it might be something mental. They may just need to have somebody just to converse with, to get the idea flushed out. And we want to then help them move toward a plan, an action plan. That's how you get hope back started, because a lot of people just don't know how to get started. So they stuck, or they're in a repetitive cycle, especially using drugs. They'll use the drugs, and the minute stress come on, they do good. Then when stress come on, then they back to using drugs again, right? So it's that continuous pattern. So now they need somebody that can help them get off that revolving wheel, and that's how you establish hope in that situation. There's many other situations of establishing hope, such as like with Sheldon and the kids, putting them in a program like this, get them involved, teach them different things, have them around positive role models, have them involved with learning a trade or a skill like we do at GoMad, and Youth Build, they doing that. They teaching these young individuals, you do have power, and they don't know their power, or they don't know, like Sheldon said, they don't know they self. I take them through an assessment, strength analysis. What's your strength and your weakness? And then, see, we always battering them, talking about, no, don't do this, do that. But do you ever tell them, do this, you good at that, you good at writing, do that, focus on their strengths. That's how you build hope.
Thank you. Again, I would also ask you a similar question. You eloquently talked about family need, family supports. I want you to expound a little bit more on that as we talk about family supports. When families are in crisis and they're trying to navigate those, we often as society add to what they're dealing with. How do we reverse that? And talk a little bit more about what family needs look like today.
Yeah, so I feel like the way we reverse that, first of all, is that we have to take off the lens of criticizing and looking at everything from a critical standpoint of, well, you're liking this, you're liking that, you didn't do this, or you came from this family, so this is what's expected of you, or whatever the case may be. And put on a lens of love and understanding and compassion. That's what folks need. That's how you begin to make changes. The needs are great. They're vast, they're deep, and every family is different, and I think that that's really important in our work, is to recognize that every family is an individual, and we need to meet that individual need. So it could be housing for one, and it could be an employment for another. It could be needing spiritual support. That's one of the things that I like about doing wraparound and systems of care, is that you can bring in all of the pieces, holistic pieces of what a family needs to address that. And I think that another way we bring back hope is to bring back our leaders, our spiritual leaders, to the table to help with that process as well, to be a part of the solutions of what we need to have to instill hope. But the main thing is access and not being judgmental. That is that, and bringing our biases to the table. One of the things that we work at in our program with families as peer supporters, when we go out to work with families, is we work on suspending our biases, because I can't help you or support you if I'm judging you, right? And so I think that has a lot to do with training people to go out into the field to work with folks, because we can come in with our attitudes and dispositions that hinder families being able to heal.
Oh, powerful. Thank you. Sheldon, let me bring it back to you. We have some significant imagery, perceptional issues around black males and black youth. I know you talked initially about identity. How, as a community, do we address that, right? Like, we see a black male, we see 3 or 4 of them all together, we think negativity automatically, right? And I know you're trying to help the boys navigate those things. Talk a little bit about that.
So I think I'm going to challenge everyone to become a mentor. You know, if it's nothing but an hour a week, in whatever race, it doesn't matter, whatever male or female, you know, I challenge everyone, because I think it's love. Love comes from your heart, and if the things that they're dealing with are heart problems, and like you said, with getting the churches and stuff involved, because it is a heart problem. But as a mentor and giving an hour a week or so, a lot of us that have these different jobs and careers, we could talk to the kids about their careers. We could talk to the kids about what it is to love someone, and just really learn a different identity, and not always thinking of negativity, negative things. Feed some positive in them with being a mentor. So,
yeah, thank you. You know, as a community, we often talk about being a resource-rich community, right? Which means we have stuff. We have things to throw at things. Regina talked about the coordination. How do we break out of our silos? We talk about it all the time. Folks are fighting for resources, for existence. How do we break out of our silos to really come together? Because our society and our community needs that now more than ever. How do we change this up?
Well, when we were working through Access, and I go back to the Access days for the simple fact that one of the things that the Mental Health Board did that I thought made a lot of sense, and it made us have to work together, is that it was a requirement for us to work together and to create that through Access. And so you have to, sometimes in the grant funders and people who are making these grants are saying, okay, how do we build this into our grant making process to ensure that silos are being broken down in order for these organizations to start working together? Because we continue to see the problem increasing, but as grant makers, we have a way of being able to influence that. And so I think it could start with some of our grant makers who are, providing our funding for us and saying, hey, we have to do something different. Let's look at how we can put this into our grant making process to change how that is rolling out.
Other thoughts?
No, I agree with everything what Regina is saying. I'm not sure how we get out of these silos, but we're going to have to get out the silos moving forward. The silos are not working. That model does not work. It leaves too many fissures and cracks where, individuals already falling through the cracks. Now we just got a wide gap, and we're seeing more of that. So this is why the H3 model, the harm, hope, and healing all in one with the 5 different components, and having all these different organizations moving as a unit, because this is really a war now. This has turned into a war, and you got to have a command center, But the command center is headed up by individuals within the community on the board, set up, and then working with each organization. I think we can move forward and make some real changes here.
All right. Yeah. Okay, Sheriff. So we've been, I know that always starts off like a minute, right?
Yeah.
So we've been talking about strengthening, at the core of the community coalition is strengthening police-community relations. I think we've made tremendous progress. Law enforcement is more engaged than I've ever seen in my almost 25 years of doing community work. Law enforcement's been under siege. Law enforcement's undermanned. Law enforcement's tired,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And we need engagement more than ever. Are there things you see that we can do better, that we can, how do we support one another, deal with these really tough, complex issues, and bring our community and police together? Are there things you see that we can do more?
We've all got to work together. We can't be working against each other. And I don't think we purposefully work against each other. I just think that I don't know what First Followers is doing. They don't know what I'm doing in the jails. And there is so much, and that's just as much on me as it is anybody else. But we just don't stop for a second and think about how this fits into the big picture of things. Right? Because I get busy. You know, from the time I get to work to the time I go home, I am busy, and then I'm busy after that too. Right? But stopping, that's the only way we're going to be able to get through this, is realize that we are stronger together.
Right.
We're weaker broken up. There is just no, we've got to realize that. That's got to be a conscious effort. Right?
Well, we have our community coalition. We're back now. And this is our opportunity to roll up our sleeves. We've been doing it virtually, which makes it, I mean, Chief Carey came up to me, and I didn't realize we had never met in person until today, right? She's been here almost 2 years, right? So, or at least a year and a half, right? So when you talk about what the pandemic has done to help divide us, we're going to have to work equally harder to come back, build our partnerships and our collaboration, more importantly than we ever have. So I hope we take that from our meeting today, that this is part of that first step to move to that next level of engagement, support, holding each other accountable. And so we have that as an opportunity. The only thing that stops us from doing that is our will. And so I hope we take that from today, that this is our starting point. Our numbers, shooting numbers, were at record levels. So I've been saying the last few weeks, let's not talk about what somebody's not doing or what's not working or tearing down this program or this organization. Right. There's spaces for everybody to do their work. There's spaces for everybody to support one another. So I hope we take that out of this space today, that what we're doing can build on what someone else is doing. Maurice Hayes is sitting here in the front, and Sheldon brought Maurice in to deal with a group of guys that are struggling in our schools, and he was masterful. He was masterful with connecting with these students, getting them to talk and trust. I can't have that conversation, right? He's got a unique skill and talent that we have to make sure is included in all of our work. And so I just wanted to use that as an example, that we all have a space and a place and a role to play. And let's leave out of here today figuring out how we support each other in new and better and different ways. So I know I saw Mother Underwood, Reverend Dr. Underwood, all right. Woo, she got about 5 or 6 of them here, right? All right. All right, Mother, I got to figure this out here. She wants to talk a little bit about you, Sheldon. So a couple of these, you know, the impact of the Gold Ridders. And then you talked about your dad's passing. How are you able to share that experience helping young folks that are learning how to deal with loss, whether it's a parent, whether it's a peer, whether it's somebody in their clique and their crew? Death is a real issue for us in society today.
Yeah. Well, first of all, to build a relationship with them, they need to know that I've been in poverty. I lived around violence. I know what it's like to get your house shot up. I know what it's like to have a brother been shot 7 times. And so when I'm talking to these young men that have been through that, they feel that I understand what their pain and what they're going through. So I listen. You know, I don't always have an answer. You know, I don't always. But then I know some guys that do might have some answers that know more than what I know, especially in the community. You know, and so. And I bring them guys in and I let them talk to them, you know, and you know, like he was saying with Maurice, they come in and they talk to the guys, and all you gotta do is say, hey, I know your dad, or I know your mom, or I know your brother, or I know your sister, I know your uncle, or something. And there's a connection. And so building a relationship with them and connecting with them on the level that they on is powerful, actually.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, so I've got a University of Illinois question here. One of the premier institutions in the world. My good friend, Dr. William Patterson, always talks about people are fighting to get into our university from across the world. And we've got kids that live 2, 3, 4 blocks away and don't have access or not aware of the access of what the University of Illinois can do. How do we bridge that opportunity?
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Some of my young men and women are intimidated with the University of Illinois. And there are reasons for that, you know. And so what I do is we do college visits. We'll take them on college visits. We do a special Operation Hope tour just for my group, where they get in different aspects of the University of Illinois that everybody else don't get. You know, they get an opportunity to go through the dorms. They get an opportunity to eat in the new you know, dorm rooms or whatever, dorm halls or whatever they call them. And one year we had opportunities to you know, the Arc, it used to be the Arc. What is it? It's the Arc now.
It's the Arc,
yeah, so they had opportunity to play basketball in the Arc, you know, and then when they were walking on campus and they realized, man, these people look just like me on this campus. Man, I can be in that classroom. I could be at Beckman Institute. I can be an engineer, and it makes them feel that they are somebody, and it makes them feel that they can do it. They can be part of the University of Illinois. So that's an example. The exposure of the college visits and career exploration visits that we do is powerful.
Tiger, any thoughts? Campus can play with you, working with the folks you're working with?
I think the folks I'm working with a little older, most of them older. So going back to school is not something that they're thinking of at that time. Going to the university, right now they're looking to get a job and survive, you know. But like Sheldon was saying, get them early, get them over there, expose them to that lifestyle, and they could see that they compete. Because I didn't know that myself, you know. And then when I got involved in college, man, I had everybody running behind me talking about, how did you get them A's? You know, I didn't know I could compete until I got there, and this forced me into this. This forced me into the school, and I had a felony at the time. I couldn't really get a job, so that cut out 75% of the jobs. Then this, along with the injury, along with the felonies, that right there just left me like 10% of the jobs. I said, man, I got to go back. So I didn't know I was good at you know, education like that. But like he said, get them there. And then when I got there, I'm like, oh man, they just like me. But the strange thing about it was, you know, I was always a readaholic. I was in the street, but I read constantly. But just didn't. It's a competition thing. Can you compete
with your
on that
peers.
level academically?
Right.
And once I found out academically I can excel or go beyond them, then, you know, I said, oh, this ain't nothing, you know.
Okay.
Digest, reverb, I could do this. So yeah, do just like he said, man. Get them on, man.
Regina, any thoughts on the university's role in your work?
No, I can't think of anything off the top of my head as far as that is concerned.
So we have a race relations subcommittee here through the Community Coalition. The last question really is about systemic and structural racism in our community. What impact that plays, how do we disrupt that as a barrier for addressing needs and supports education, opportunity. Yes, sir.
So that's a big problem. Systemic racism is a problem here. With our program, Go Mad, we train these young men very well. We had a hard time getting these young men into becoming a journeyman, or in order to get hired in those type of jobs, they want them to go through these, the unions. That is a problem. Here's another problem. You got all this construction going on here. How many black men is working there? All these young guys, we got, Youth Bill, they could go there and help clean up them sites. See, they need to see these things and be participating, but they not. What's going on with that? I don't get it. I mean, we training them well. They rebuilt the 2 houses over there for us, and we had the hardest time getting them in there. Why? So what is that about?
So for our audience and those not here, those that are on the stream, that asked the question to Jennifer of what can be done, is we have to be honest with ourselves, our organizations, our institutions, that we still have a race issue in our community. Yes. And we have to be honest with ourselves to be able to break through these issues. And so we all have a responsibility with that as well. We have to be honest and start from that place, and then look at structurally and systemically what are the barriers, what are the issues that have to be broken through. And so I love this question because it's the true, honest place that we don't get enough chance and opportunity to talk about its impact. It's stifling us as a community. And if we don't do it, we're going to be here next year, and 2 years from now, and 5 years from now, talking about how bad things are. We can do this. We can do this. And so I want to thank our panelists. Can we give them another round of applause? You all were phenomenal. Thank you. This is our first time with this type of discussion through the coalition. I think it has value, but the work has even more. So Regina Kreider from the Youth and Family Peer Support Alliance. Sheriff Dustin Harmon. James Tiger Corbin. And then Sheldon Turner with Unifor School. So Andy, I do want to thank you and thank WCIA for your leadership around understanding. I think Sheldon hit it perfectly. The media has a significant role for us. Most people don't get a chance to know people that are different from them, so they shape their thoughts and opinions on what they see through the media. And so as the leading organization in the media, I want to say thank you for taking this on and doing this. And so thank you to the audience. Thank you for the partnerships that we all have existing through the Community Coalition. And I hope we leave here ready to strengthen and keep building on what we're already doing. We have a great community, and I hope we are ready to move forward together. Right. And so thanks. We look forward to seeing you at our regular meeting time next month here in this space. And so just thanks, community, for your support and participation tonight.
All right. All right.